Following is a production of DallasCowboys.com and the Dallas Cowboys Football Club.
How about them Cowboys?
Go Cowboys! This is Mick Shots.
Streaming live on DallasCowboys.com and the official Dallas Cowboys app.
Now, here are Bill Jones, Everson Walls, and Mickey Spagnola.
All right, here we are. It's a beautiful Monday, a hot and steamy Monday in North Texas, and this is Mick Shots. Bill Jones, Mickey Spagnola, and we are rejoined this week by the great Everson Walls, who's back in the house.
So
Hello,
much.
Everson.
I see pots cooking and boiling outside. What the heck is going on?
Crawfish boil.
Crawfish boil.
Out there on the practice field, and
Come on,
I expected
man.
to see football players on the football field today. What's going on?
Well,
Are we
they're
just behind the
probably-
You got
scenes?
chefs out there now.
They're trying to bribe them to take part in the voluntary start to phase
that's
one
a
of the
good one.
workouts.
That's a good one.
Today's the day. It's the official start of voluntary off-season workouts here at the Star in Frisco.
You know, next weekend I'll be having at a crawfish cookout. So this is very apropos. I like that.
Well, I just got some.
You did?
6 pounds on Saturday.
Did you?
Yes, absolutely.
Man, that's what I'm talking about.
Boy, they were good.
That's right. You got a little Louisiana in you, man.
Quite a bit. Half of me.
There you go.
So is Dak arranged this, he being a Louisiana guy, to get his guys out here?
I don't know. It's
That's interesting. Very good. I like that bit.
It looked like it was the same company that cooked for us before our Rangers opening day.
Oh, okay.
event.
So they've got an
Out at
ongoing contract with
AT&T.
them.
Maybe.
Or at least a month-long
Yes,
contract with them.
Absolutely.
They've got the table out there, long.
Got it set up right.
Got it set up. All you got to do is just cook them and then just pour them out
Got
there.
the portable boilers that you can buy
Yeah.
at the store.
That was impressive. I'm like,
Okay.
man, what is happening out here?
But it is the first day.
Yeah, I didn't see him,
off-season.
but when I got here, it was a little bit before 10.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if the workouts hadn't commenced yet or.
Now, the
Is it
first
strength?
phase, there's
Go ahead.
there's different phases of the
Right.
off-season program, much like in training camp where you have a ramp-up period. The first couple of weeks of the off-season program, it's just with the strength and conditioning staff, and the coaches can't be on the practice field with them.
But they can have meetings.
They can, behind the scenes, have meetings
Yeah.
for the first time since the end of the season, basically.
Yes, yes. So, and it's voluntary. So, you know,
What do voluntary mean?
yeah, it means I don't have to be here if I don't want to. Hambrick.
Oh, my goodness. A little inside joke there, people. If you don't
I
listen
think-
to us a lot, then you
I
wouldn't
think
know
our
what we're
people.
talking about.
I think there are people.
Yeah, if you don't listen to
understand.
us a lot, you would know what we're talking about.
It's been a while since.
It's just
Nearly 25
unfortunate.
years ago now.
It's just unfortunate. I don't know that we ever had a recording of that.
Oh,
you know?
okay.
You know, it would have been as popular as "How about them Cowboys?" Right? What do voluntary mean?
Oh, man.
But we had Dak Prescott at the
Yes.
Children's Cancer Fund gala on Friday. And
okay.
heard from Dak as well, and he's a limited participant. He said he could play a game now if he needed to, but he doesn't need to now. And they don't. Now they've got two quarterbacks.
I don't believe him. I don't believe him. He's so optimistic. He couldn't play a game right now.
Well, you know what? When I've been watching his rehab out there, he's been on the cords, right? And they do all the little side steps, forward, backward. They go in a big square.
Yeah.
Well, last week, I can't remember if it was Thursday or Friday, no more cord. He was doing this on his own.
Yeah.
And he was running pretty well.
Nice.
I mean, hard. He was doing those exercises
Yeah.
hard. So that was
I think
another step in the right direction.
I think with me, it's just I'm just so ignorant of the injury, and so that's why I'm so pessimistic about it.
Well, he could probably play as long as he knew he wasn't getting hit.
Yeah. Okay. So he played touch football.
I see that's going on now with the Stars defenseman, Miro Heiskanen. He's practicing, but he's not allowed to be in contact,
Right.
which means, well, you can't play yet.
Which means the Stars are sucking right now.
Well, their defense is really
I
struggling.
was there for Winnipeg.
Oh, are you really?
Oh, my
You went to a hockey game?
I went to a hockey game, man. My
Picked the
brother's a
best
hockey.
one. I'm playing the
Well,
best
why
team
didn't
in the
you say
league.
so? I was there.
Well, I didn't see you guys in the week, and my buddy came in from New Orleans, and he wanted to go to a game. Of course, the only black guy he knows that likes hockey is my brother. So, we went to the game. Whatever, is it a game?
It's
Is
a
it
game.
called a game?
Soccer's a match.
Okay.
Hockey's a game.
So went to the hockey game, had great seats. And when I tell you, the Winnipeg Jets are the biggest freaking team I think I've ever seen on ice. They were here. Our guys were here.
And they're really good playing
And
defense.
they're good defense. I mean, it's not just the goalie. They're playing defense on the exterior. And we couldn't even get to the goalie half the time, especially in the second and third period. It was ridiculous.
So they had like the Jalen Carter on their defense.
Yes, they do. Big number 90. It was 94 or 94. He looked like he was about 6'7". It was ridiculous, man.
There's a reason why they've got the most points
Exactly
in
right.
the league. They're going to. I mean, I don't
Exactly
know
right.
if they're going to try these last couple games, but they're going to get the President's Trophy.
Again, defense wins championships.
It does.
Just like Mickey's always
It
said.
does. They made the game.
You didn't hear me,
boring.
Mickey.
Except
okay.
when you give up 134 points in a basketball game.
Okay. Yeah, well, that's NBA.
Where'd we go? Oh,
Talking Mavericks.
who gave up
Talking
134
Mavs.
points?
The Mavericks.
Yeah, man.
Yesterday?
Yes.
They didn't play anybody.
Well,
They played.
Well, they
sat
played
everybody.
some. I know.
No, they
Oh, you mean
sat.
they didn't play any of their own
No,
players?
they
Yeah.
Is that what you mean?
sat everybody.
I know, but they still.
And
give up
that's the thing with the okay.
134
But their
points.
backup
This
players
is-
are way better than our backup players.
This is
obviously.
comparing the NFL with the NBA.
Yeah.
Because the NFL, for years now, they've got their schedule figured out where you're playing division rivals the last week. You schedule the games, basically. They're very strategic to make sure that teams aren't sitting players. That something
Meaningful
if there's a
games.
chance that the game can be meaningful, it's going to be played at the same time as another game that might impact that team's standing. And the NBA did the same thing. They scheduled all their games at 2:30 yesterday afternoon. Okay, and the Mavericks had something to play for. Okay, because they are in the play-in game, a one-game play-in game against Sacramento. Both teams come into the game with the same record. Sacramento's got the tiebreaker. And so the Mavericks, if the Mavericks win, Sacramento has to win over Phoenix to claim the home court advantage in that play-in game.
Okay.
Well, the Mavericks just sat Anthony Davis and Klay Thompson and
starters.
P.J. Washington and Derek Lively don't play in the game.
Yeah.
And so Sacramento doesn't play anybody in the game. And then I look across, Memphis had to win the game too for whatever reason. And they sat all their guys too. The guy that was their leading scorer scored 31 points. He averages 2.3 points a game, and he scored 31 to lead the way for them. And so the NBA is trying to make it meaningful on the last day of the season, like the NFL does. And it's, what the hell, it doesn't matter.
Right.
No, we're just not going to play anybody.
It was ugly. It was
Health.
It was ugly.
And then they got a guy hurt.
That was a 40-point difference.
Yeah, I mean it's
Okay.
It was like the day after the Luka trade where they sat everybody because everyone was distraught and in shock, and so nobody played, and then they gave up 150 points to Cleveland. And
Can you put that on the injury list? I'm distraught.
But if you go back to why they couldn't beat Boston, because they couldn't score enough points.
No doubt.
The
And they
defense played decently,
Decent. They were decent.
but they couldn't. They couldn't score 100 points.
Right.
because the Boston defense was so good.
Oh, okay, but theirs wasn't. Right? So then they tried to fix the offense by trading for Anthony Davis, right?
They fixed the defense.
Yeah.
All right. So now we bring it back to the Cowboys.
Yes.
We've got a draft looming 9 days away now.
And one more veteran backup quarterback I see got off the board. Drew Lock back to Seattle.
Drew Lock to Seattle. I did not even see that.
It just happened this morning.
So who's going to be their starter in Seattle?
Well,
Will it be Drew?
They got Sam Darnold.
No, they got Sam Darnold. they had Sam Howell.
Will
Is it Sam Howell?
Sam Howell.
Yeah, veteran. And they
now
only
they got
signed
Drew
him
Lock.
to a 2-year, $5 million deal. Well, that's what was reported. And I thought the
Drew Lock?
Cowboys, I thought the Cowboys were just waiting till the price came down.
Yes.
Well, 2.5 a year, that's pretty inexpensive for a guy that started games in the.
But wait, the Cowboys don't need a backup quarterback. They traded for their backup quarterback,
Okay,
right?
you feel good about that, huh?
So we need one more, right?
Yeah,
he
I
went
think
22
so.
for 29 and threw a touchdown pass and ran for a touchdown pass in the game he played.
What
in.
did you just talk about? What the Mavericks did, sitting people in a game that didn't matter? Buffalo played nobody on defense.
That final regular season game against New England.
Yeah.
I was shocked. I went and did the research on it because everyone's talking about how well Joe Milton played, and it was against a good team, Buffalo. And I went back and looked at the snap count for the Buffalo players in that game against Joe Milton. They literally, and I don't have the list in front of me, there were 8 defensive starters that did not play in the game. And Von Miller played 3 snaps in the game, I assume because he needed a there was an incentive.
Start, right?
There was an incentive. And then their next 4 regulars on their defense played 20 snaps or fewer in the game. And I'm like, how in the NFL, it's like because of roster restrictions and stuff, how do you sit all 11 or 12 starters? And they figured out a way to do it. And credit goes to Sean McDermott, their head coach, and Brandon Beane, their GM, manipulating their practice squad and have call-ups and whatever, and they were able to field a team. But that's what Joe Milton went up against in that game. So, in other words, tap the brakes.
So he's got 1 game of NFL experience. That one you just talked about.
Will Greer's got 2 starts in his career. So the Cowboys are their backup quarterbacks. Will Greer and Joe Milton have a combined 3 starts in the NFL. So are you
And that's
comfortable?
who you're going to lean on if Dak Prescott gets hurt in preseason, which he won't play.
So
But
no
if he
more
did-
Cooper Rushes out there, huh?
There's probably still a few guys.
Carson Wentz is out there.
And by the way,
Believe it or not, I could take Carson Wentz.
these teams that draft a rookie quarterback probably
as far as a
have-
backup, Bill.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
as far as a
yeah.
backup.
Carson Wentz
Right.
was with Kansas City last year. He's now 33 years old. And so he would be another guy who doesn't have as much playing time as Carson Wentz, but does have starts in the league. C.J. Beathard, who was with Jacksonville, 32 years old,
when
and has a history.
Schottenheimer was there.
When Schottenheimer was at Jacksonville, he coached him there for 1 year.
You know, it's funny. I look at Carson Wentz and I say, okay, he's had enough failures to know when to stop. And to me, that's just experience, right?
Yep.
And so you want a guy. I wouldn't want him here as a starter, but if he came here as a backup, he could recognize situations that he could manage based on the experiences that he's had.
I mean, compare, Carson Wentz or Cooper Rush?
I'm talking Carson Wentz.
No, but I'm saying compare the two. I mean,
Carson Wentz, much better athlete. And he's got the tools are much better, but that was never his problem. And you know, Cooper Rush, his problems were he was able to overcome his problems with experience. So I'm hoping
for
Carson
instance,
Wentz can do the same.
See, if the Cowboys or any other team sign Carson Wentz, it's a yawn from people. And it's also, but when Cooper Rush goes to Baltimore, wow, they let Cooper Rush get away, you know? And a lot of it has to do with Carson Wentz was the 2nd pick in the draft. So he's considered a bust because he didn't live up to that where he was drafted.
At one point,
Cooper Rush was college free agent, and no one he didn't have the expectations.
Yes.
No one had the expectations Cooper Rush could do anything. Then he comes in and wins some games, and Cooper Rush, good backup.
If you could get a backup for $2 million, say, Daniel Jones, right? Everybody said, well, he failed the Giants. Well, okay, but you're hoping he doesn't have to play. But if he does, The reason backup quarterbacks are successful is their experience, because they don't get to practice once the season starts.
And the Colts are hoping Daniel Jones does play.
Yes.
Because it's either him or Anthony Richardson right now as their starting quarterback.
Bad decision to draft.
Which gets back to the draft and quarterbacks getting overdrafted.
And
I could look at both of those and say that.
think about this: when these,
I'm sorry, you can look at both of those and say that.
I don't know how many quarterbacks will get drafted in the first round, but when they get drafted, somebody's getting knocked off their roster. So there'll be more quarterbacks available the 1st of May.
Well, what happened when the Cowboys got Andy Dalton? That was the year that the Bengals drafted Joe Burrow.
Right.
And so Andy Dalton was on the roster up until, they made the number 1 overall pick, Joe Burrow, and then the Bengals released Andy Dalton, and the Cowboys pick up Andy Dalton.
And he had already made all the money he needed, so he could come in and for whatever I think they only paid him $3 million for the year.
So I think it's wise for the Cowboys at this point.
Just sit tight.
Just sit tight, see what happens in the draft. There may be a guy in the 5th round that the Cowboys draft that they like, who, as a developmental guy who has experience in college, who they may say, you know what, let's go with this guy and Joe Milton and let it go through the offseason, get them snaps, see where they are in training camp. And you can always get a guy at the end of training camp, too, to be your backup, a veteran guy if you needed to.
So the 2 guys that'll go probably, I don't know, 3rd day that played a lot of college ball, the Ohio State guy.
Will Howard.
Didn't he play like 4 or 5 years?
Yeah, played at Kansas State and then at Ohio State.
And then, is it Riley?
Riley Leonard.
Notre Dame, same thing, right?
He was at Duke for 3 years and then at Notre Dame, and they both played against each other in the national championship game.
So they're experienced. They've taken a lot of college snaps at least. I could see.
And they have those. They have those.
You're saying a college player that's had at least 4 years. Experience.
not 3 and out.
Right.
But I like both of those guys in terms of those intangibles, leadership, character. I mean, Riley Leonard has incredible athleticism too. He has been, in fact. It's funny that you even mentioned him because he's my guy as a sleeper quarterback in this draft that I think could develop into something. And he's got just the presence that he has. You go look at his high school basketball video of him slam dunking, and just as a running quarterback in college football, there's a reason that Notre Dame was running the ball all the time, because he could do it. Yeah. And as Darrell Royal used to say, when you throw the ball, 3 things can happen. 2 of them are bad. Well, and you're controlling games by controlling the football, running the ball. But he's running through the Georgia defense, the Clemson defense, doing these incredible athletic things. And I like him as a developmental guy as far as his passing, too. But we'll see where he goes. I think he has a personality that I think coaches will there'll be coaches who fall in love with him, who he may go earlier than people expect because of that. But if he is there in the 5th round, I say jump on him.
So mentioning that, what does the big green notebook say about Quinn Ewers? Like a round.
And talking with people close to Ewers, I mean, he could go as early as the high 2nd, or he could, depending on how the quarterbacks play out here, he could, and all those quarterbacks could drop all the way to the 3rd day of the draft, depending on, you've got, obviously Cam Ward's going number 1 overall, and you got Shadeur Sanders, and there's mixed reviews on him, whether he will go top of the 1st round. He could be a guy that slides to the 2nd round, depending on where that run starts on quarterbacks and what people think. Like the Saints now with the Derek Carr injury, there's a lot of speculation. Well, maybe the Saints would, at number 9, would take a quarterback, and maybe it's Shadeur goes there. Jackson Dart from Ole Miss is another one that's in that mix. Well, if teams decide, they look at the landscape and we think, we can get one of those 2 guys with our early 2nd round pick, they may wait or trade up from the 2nd round. The Saints have 6 picks in the top 130 in the draft, and they could trade up, whatever. And so that might push Ewers, Will Howard, Tyler Shuck is another guy from Louisville who played at Texas Tech, started his career as Justin Herbert's backup at Oregon. He's going to be 26 in September and has really, you look at the talented arms in this draft, and Tyler Shuck is right there at the top. And so that could push those guys all down around. And so we'll see. But usually quarterbacks get drafted earlier than what they're graded.
Okay, so it seems like the big unknown right now with the quarterbacks in the draft is where Shadeur Sanders should be drafted. What do you guys think? What is your estimation of what he is? Say his name was Shadeur Wilson. Does that change what everybody thinks about him?
Anytime you have the luxury of having Sanders, it does change things just automatically. You're going to get more exposure and then also more criticism. He's got to be, as a quarterback, I think he has been challenged more than any other quarterback. I think he's had less to work with than any of the top quarterbacks that are being considered in the draft.
When you could consider his offensive line especially.
Yes, offensive line especially. And so that, to me, lets me know how durable he is. It kind of it brings him up on the ladder, to me, a little bit higher, simply because you know that he's had that experience of diversity and adversity. And so I think if his name was not Sanders, I think he'd get less consideration, but it wouldn't be fair. It would not be fair, because this guy has been through a lot in his 2 years, and, well, especially 2 years in Colorado. And I think coming to the pros, it would be better off for him when he gets there, because he's going to be the guy that has been through it already. It hadn't been a cakewalk for him at all.
And, in fact, I did a podcast this morning with Babe Laufenberg, and we were talking about Shadeur, and the way Babe put it, and he likes a lot about Shadeur's what he's done in college, and thinks he has probably a higher floor than a lot of the quarterbacks in this draft. He's not sure about how high his ceiling is, because of he doesn't have the best arm in the draft. Not to say he doesn't have a good arm, but as far as being a guy who can be a Pro Bowl quarterback down the road, and then, I don't mean to put words into Babe's mouth on this, but that's one way he was looking at it, was that, and he doesn't have his dad's athleticism.
No, doesn't have his speed.
Right, exactly.
Doesn't have it.
Right,
And to me,
but he does have his movement in the pocket and so forth. He's got enough to be able to.
As we talk about
play.
what he doesn't have,
Yeah,
that's why I like him so much, because there's a lot of things that he doesn't have. But you can see
he
that
has a calmness about him,
and he's salvaged some plays
almost to a
amazing.
fault. The calmness is almost to a fault, because he waits and lets, and he believes he can make the play so much that he will wait and wait and wait for the play to develop, and then he gets sacked in the meantime.
At the risk of his own health.
Exactly.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Which tells you a little bit about his courage too. That
Yes,
he's
it does.
tough.
Yes,
That
it
he
does.
will
See, and
stand
I
in
think some people mistake that from lack of recognition, because he's waiting.
Right.
Right. Because I
And he's been coached by Pat Shermer at Colorado.
Right.
NFL coaching there, and so.
I was just wondering, because it seems like and you know what these mock drafts are, right? They don't check with anybody. And all of a sudden his name starts going down, down, and it's like, oh, okay.
You know, what happens on that is, okay, and they're obviously with a guy like Shadeur, there's hype to begin with there. And so guys they make out their mock drafts or they do their evaluations, and then they start talking to NFL people, scouts or whatever, as we get closer and closer to the draft, and they get mixed reviews. And so, but how much of that is truth and how much of it is?
Because if their mouths are moving, they're lying.
That's right, right. So then when they hear that, okay, there's mixed reviews in NFL, well, it only takes is one.
Yeah.
And Michael Penix last year, okay? Atlanta has already signed Kirk Cousins, and Michael Penix has this injury history. I mean, the talent is obvious with Penix, and he was an older guy, 24 years old coming out. But and everyone couldn't believe that Atlanta would pick him 9th overall because they had signed Cousins. Well, they loved him enough to do that, and it's actually he's now the starting quarterback here a year later.
Yeah.
So all it takes is one that likes you. Doesn't matter what the other 31 are thinking. I mean, ask Patrick Mahomes draft. Ask Chicago how they feel about their evaluation of quarterbacks in that draft when they take Trubisky and there's Mahomes going 9 picks later.
Yeah, and the Bears should not be the example of their ability to choose quarter. Although I think this last one is probably pretty good if they get him somebody.
Well, they've worked on that.
They had 2 or 3 quarterbacks before, and they still didn't give him any help.
Yeah.
So I feel sorry for the guy because he's going to go through the same crap the Fields went through. They don't have anything there for him.
Well, they've added this year. They've got veterans in their offensive line. They got Ben Johnson as their head coach. So now
veteran wide receiver.
Yeah. Let's see.
Let's see.
Yeah,
we'll see.
Yeah. All right.
I'm not fooled.
We're just getting started on this edition of Mick Shots. So much to get to on Mickey's legal pad when we come back.
Cowboys football and Miller Lite. What a pairing. Can cracks at kickoff. Tailgates going way past postgame. Sunday night overtimes followed by Monday morning swagger. Brisket in the smoker. Miller Lite in the cooler. America's team playing America's greatest sport. Miller Lite, the only beer of the Dallas Cowboys. Dallas Cowboys football tastes like Miller time. Celebrate responsibly. 2023 Miller Brewing Company, Fort Worth, Texas.
How do you tell the world about all the great gifts in the Yeti store? Let her rip, Troy.
All right, folks, let's get started with the Yeti French Press. Enjoy coffee that stays hot for hours in a French press. 34 ounce for you, 6'4" for the cruise. The Yeti French Press. Hot mix waterproof bags. Bags waterproof. Submersible waterproof doubles. Waterproof bags. World's mostly water, so get a waterproof Yeti bag. Do I smell something cooking? Oh, new cast iron skillets made to be passed down like Mama's recipes. Take a steak, cornbread, cobbler's pot pie, and potatoes next oval with 3 sizes of Yeti cast iron skillets.
Gear, gifts, and product experts. Visit the Yeti store on McKinney Street and at South Lake Town Square today.
Hey, Cowboy fans, I'm Dak Prescott, quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys. But lately, I've been learning a new game, crypto. Sound confusing? Don't worry, even us pros were rookies in crypto once. That's why I trust blockchain.com. They make crypto easy. No confusing jargon, just the tools to help you win.
Prescott keeps it, slides with a first down.
Invest like your icons, where everyone is a rookie in crypto with blockchain.com.
Perfect throw, my goodness. Wow, did he ever thread the needle?
Visit blockchain.com/cowboys to get started.
The Medal of Honor is our country's highest military award for valor in combat. More than 40 million individuals have served in the armed forces since the Civil War. Fewer than 4,000 have received the Medal of Honor. The National Medal of Honor Museum will be a place to preserve these legacies and inspire America. It's being built right next door to the Dallas Cowboys in Texas. Help us honor our country's greatest heroes. Learn more and get involved at mohmuseum.org.
Back to Mick Shots.
Draft weekend at the Star. Cowboys fans, get ready for the draft weekend presented by Miller Lite at the Star in Frisco. The action kicks off Thursday, April 24th, with the Ultimate Draft Party, continues Friday with the Draft Hangout, and wraps up Saturday with the Draft Day 5K presented by Baylor Scott and White Health Center. 3 days of football, fun, and experience you won't want to miss. Visit Dallas Cowboys Draft for details.
You running? 3K?
I'd be walking it if I did it.
I thought of that.
There's room for walking, is it?
Yeah.
They won't blame you for walking.
You can go at your own pace.
Dude, my running days after that last Cowtown Marathon,
That's it.
I'm done.
You got no desire
I'm
anymore?
done, bro. I might do a turkey trot or something, and I won't be doing the 8. But my goodness, it tore me up. I'm done. A man has to know his limitations.
I used to love to jog.
I did too.
Then I tore my meniscus, and doctor said, you got a partially torn meniscus. If you were an athlete, I'd recommend surgery, but you're not an athlete, so go find an elliptical machine. And so I've been on elliptical ever since. And I used to love, and traveling and jogging.
I quit while I was ahead. My faculties are still there. All that's working, but nah, I'm good. I'm good.
All right, Mickey, what you got on your legal pad?
Well, before we get to that, when we were talking about Shadeur, and stop me if I told this before.
Stop.
Because I probably have, right? The big,
too slow there.
The Big 12 Pro Day. My buddy in Waco, David Smoke, had Shiloh Sanders. For an interview.
Yes.
He's pretty sharp. Now he's probably not going to get drafted.
You don't think so?
It'll be.
Because I really
6th, 7th round.
Yeah, I hadn't really.
He's a safety.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah, I hadn't really looked at him.
And so they're talking with him. He's pretty funny, and they asked him something about, have you ever run against your dad or compare 40 times? And he goes, let me tell you about his 40 times. He goes, all I heard all my life was that I wake up for breakfast with a 4-2. Right? And he goes, I can find anything online.
Videos.
I can't find any video
videos
of that 4-2 40, right? He goes, why can't I find that?
That's true. That's true. No one can find it.
Pretty hilarious, right?
Which you would think that it would be out there somewhere.
Someone's got a video.
I mean, come on. Deion Sanders running a 40.
It was only 1989,
come on, man.
Right?
And so meanwhile, I just did a search on Shiloh Sanders 40 time, and it came right up. At his pro day, he had a 4.52 and a 4.59.
That's not bad for a safety.
And with the safety, recognition is more important. As important as speed.
Deion promised him a new car if he ran in 4.44. Yeah,
he didn't get it.
He narrowly missed.
So the other thing he said was, he goes, he talks about this 4.2 40. And he goes, I was picking his brain for how he trained for his 40. And he goes, I don't need to train. I told you I'm 4.2 40 for breakfast. And he goes, and then I got somebody online that played with him at Florida State pointed out he also ran track. He goes, so he was running track, right?
Yes.
He goes, so sometimes you got to watch what my dad says.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
It was pretty funny.
Those highlights are still pretty amazing, watching that guy run.
By the way, when you mentioned the Saints and Carr with a potential shoulder injury that could cost him the season, their quarterbacks right now,
Spencer Rattler,
Jake Hayner, and Ben DiNucci.
Yep, Ben DiNucci.
They signed him, so you got
DiNucci.
You got to know somebody.
It's connect the dots. DiNucci was here, and Kellen Moore was here.
Come on, Kellen. I mean, I guess.
All right, what do you got?
So that would help the Cowboys because if they took a quarterback.
Oh yeah,
for somebody
they're back to Shiloh. So no draft possibility. I mean,
I don't know.
You would think he could middle round. I mean, the guy was playing some good ball. I didn't see him make a whole bunch of mistakes.
All right, let me ask you this: forget Shiloh.
Okay.
If Shadeur is there at 12, does someone have pause in the draft room?
Very shortly.
No, you're gonna have to. If his name comes up, you're going to have to restrain somebody in the room and take him in the back and make sure he doesn't understand that Shadeur is waiting for you at 12. You do not want a certain person in that room even considering that. And then we're going back to a whole back, not as bad as Johnny Manziel, but still.
If Shadeur is there at 44.
No.
Okay.
Shadeur at 44?
I'm just saying.
He's at 44?
See, it gave him pause.
Come on, man.
It gave Everson
He's
pause.
at 44.
Which gets to the quarterbacks. Okay, if there is one that you love, if there's a quarterback that you love, how early would you, if you're the Cowboys, how early would you take a quarterback that you love?
44?
Fourth round.
Come on.
Fourth round, they don't have a fourth round pick.
Well, that's
so
why I
fifth
would
round. So fourth round,
fair.
you would be packaging your fifth round picks and move up into the fourth round.
Yeah.
He's not going to be there.
No, I'm just saying, but just in general.
I understand.
Any quarterback.
If there's a quarterback, and when you look at it from the Cowboys' perspective, okay, and this applies to Joe Milton here too, okay, that, okay, you've got a quarterback in Dak Prescott who's starting a 4-year contract at age 31, close to, is he 31 now? Okay.
Yes.
All right, so at the end of this contract, he's 34, 35. You want to be in a position whenever Dak is done that you've got one that you've developed in your system, you know. And in the meantime, and you look back at the track record of Dak, he has missed games over the last few years. And so at the same time, you're addressing that. If there's one you really love, you know. So I would not criticize if the Cowboys had someone they really like at 44 or 76, second or third round, go for it. Now, ideally, you trade down and pick up an extra top 100 pick. So now you've got an extra pick to play with in order to take a quarterback in the top. I'm saying if you traded down in the first round and picked up a third, whatever. Now you've got the freedom to take. I don't consider it a luxury pick, but some would call it that, to take the quarterback. Yes. But it's an important position on the team to have a backup quarterback. Now this would be one that you say is not only your quarterback, a developmental quarterback for the future, but he's also the guy who steps in if Dak got hurt first game of the season.
Okay.
You know?
That'd be a luxury.
You think
that's no luxury. You have to have that.
Right.
You know?
You can capture lightning in a bottle a second time, like drafting Dak in the fourth as your third quarterback.
Well, and that's exactly what happened.
Yeah.
You know? Now, Dak's not in
I
the same spot in his career that Tony was.
I'm saying that how many times do you get that lucky?
Yeah.
Well, that's why you do your due diligence on these quarterbacks.
Yeah, and they love Dak so well they got him with their second fourth-round pick.
Well, sometimes I think you
got to get lucky.
Well, I
That
think
was
also
misfortune for him a little bit, but luck for us that he fell down.
Well, I mean, and I did this. How much quarterback luck has this team had, right? Mm-hmm. Starting with Don Meredith. They signed it was a personal service contract, but the NFL going, well, wait a minute, we got to make this legitimate.
Didn't know the story.
You're going to have to trade a draft pick. The Bears are going to take Don Meredith and trade him to you for a future third-round pick. That's how they got Meredith.
Don Meredith is so cowboy. I couldn't see him in Chicago. I don't know.
No, it was prearranged.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
How lucky did you get with Roger Staubach? Mm-hmm. Right? Hadn't played for 4 years, 5 years. Had to do his military. You took him in the 12th round, and he turns
10th round.
10th, sorry, and turns into a Hall of Famer.
But
Danny White.
Mickey, you could say that about a whole bunch of Cowboy players.
But not other teams. Not other teams, though, to be that fortunate at the quarterback position, right? You draft Danny White thinking, well, the WFL is going to fold, and it folds. He gets here in 76, and Longley does his deal, and all of a sudden Danny, who was going to be the third quarterback, is now the backup quarterback.
Right.
And then Roger retires, and it's like, oh, I've got a quarterback that was pretty darn good in college. Mm-hmm. You know,
once again, those Spags, the Cowboy lore, though, is full of that.
They needed a quarterback in '89, and Troy Aikman's the first pick. We got the first pick in the draft because that other team went 3-13.
And then in the supplemental draft, they take Steve Walsh with what would have been the first pick of the draft in 1990.
And they might not have had Emmitt Smith.
Yeah, that's the only reason you mentioned Steve Walsh.
He did it.
Yeah, that's the only reason you mentioned Steve Walsh is because of what came afterwards.
Yeah.
It wasn't the quarterback position itself at that time.
But then they traded him for first and a second and a third.
So the first round pick, was that a Vikings pick they got Emmitt with?
No, wait.
because they used their first-round pick.
Yeah,
in
it was the Emmitt
supplemental draft.
It was Emmitt's trade.
Okay.
Yeah.
I need to look up that draft, and if they hadn't picked Steve Walsh, then what? Go ahead.
Well, the first running back taken was Blair Thomas.
Right. He was the second pick.
Second pick in the draft. George was the first.
Which is, by the way,
George, quarterback.
Jeff George.
Jeff George, thank you.
Jeff George, which they wouldn't have taken.
Mm-hmm.
So I think they would have taken. I think they would.
Cortez Kennedy.
Cortez Kennedy.
Yeah, yeah. Miami guy. They would have taken Cortez Kennedy. Then likely Russell Maryland.
That part I do recall. I remember the Cortez Kennedy angle.
And then you wouldn't have taken Russell Maryland next year.
Another guy that could have been in the mix is Junior Seau was in that draft, but their history with Cortez Kennedy probably would have meant that they would have taken Cortez Kennedy.
And remember, in that draft, they were sitting there at 21, and they decided they needed a running back. Well, the teams ahead of them all needed a running back. They needed to jump ahead, and they made the trade with Pittsburgh to go to 17. They took Emmitt Smith, and I think the next 3 draft choices were running backs. Green Bay had 2.
It was they took Emmitt at 17, and there was a linebacker, Tony Bennett, that went next. And then it was Darrell Thompson went to Green Bay at 19, Steve Bouchard, running back, to Atlanta at 20.
And the Giants.
And then Rodney Hampton went 24 to the Giants.
I asked Jimmy once, what would you have done if you didn't make that trade? Who would you have taken at 21? And he said Rodney Hampton.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That would have been a hell of a trade.
And then to go on, how fortunate were they with Tony Romo, ends up being a franchise quarterback as an undrafted guy.
All right.
And then Dak.
It's funny that you mentioned Blair Thomas, because one of the reasons I started really studying the draft and starting this big green notebook about 15 or 16 years ago, I look back at Blair Thomas versus Emmitt Smith in that draft. And remember, just a couple of years later, Blair Thomas came to the Cowboys. He was a late season pickup because of an injury issue, backup running back. And remember what Blair Thomas' personality was like when he arrived here? He was and there's no knock on Blair Thomas. It was just he lacked confidence.
Yes,
I mean,
yes.
It was striking the difference in Emmitt Smith and Blair Thomas, just in their personalities and their confidence level and charisma and so forth.
Do you think it had anything to do with the injury and his
I don't know, and that he was considered a draft bust, whatever. Maybe so. So maybe he had he was a different person.
Do you recall if he was like that in college?
I don't know. I didn't have any knowledge.
I was just wondering.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
But I was like, so how would a team make the decision if you've got Emmitt Smith or Blair Thomas in the room, just based on if you're interviewing someone for a job or whatever, the way this guy over here has so much confidence about him that the day he's drafted by the Cowboys, he walks into Valley Ranch wearing a polka dot short
sweet
or other
suit, a short suit.
And I'm like, you know what? There's more that goes into drafting these players.
I wouldn't call that personality. I'd call that bad fashion. I don't know. I don't know.
And there was no other running back taken between Blair Thomas and Emmitt Smith.
But back on the figuring out who to draft.
Right.
There's more that goes into it than just what you see on tape there and whatever their stats are. And a lot of it is their command and their charisma and their what's between the ears,
Let's see,
how smart they are.
He had the nerve, speaking of that, to hold out until the Tuesday before the season opener.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Well, he must have come out of college with some good numbers. He must have had some really good numbers.
He did. Everybody was worried about his size. I don't know if he was 5'10". I don't know. I don't think he was 5'9".
But I mean, those running back, that's a tough one.
And they were worried about his speed, right? And it's like, and then I watched him play for 2 years, and it's like, is anybody catching him from behind? No. He knew how to run.
Sounds like Emmitt.
And everybody said, well, he had such a good line at Florida.
And
right?
by the way,
I said, can you have a good line in high school and then Florida and then the Cowboys?
And by the way, Emmitt just ran for 8,804 yards, the second most yardage in the history of American high school football at the time, growing up in Florida. And then, like the National High School Player of the Year. And then at Florida, let me find his numbers.
I remember at Florida. It was so humid every game he played in. And he looked like mud was all over him all the time. Grass stains and mud. Jersey, if I'm not mistaken. I know I saw his jersey torn a couple of times. He was just one of those guys, man, that give it to Emmitt again. Give it to Emmitt again. And I'm thinking to myself, they can't stop this young man.
He only held 58 Florida school records at the conclusion of his college career, including nearly 4,000 yards rushing.
3 years, right? He came out early.
Mm-hmm.
Golly. That's all I remember him, just toting that rock. And it wasn't always pretty. Matter of fact, most of the time it was ugly.
In fact, in the era of running backs from Herschel Walker to Bo Jackson, I mean, Emmitt Smith, even though he may not have had the combine numbers that a Herschel Walker or a Bo Jackson would have as far as his accomplishments, I mean, he was second to none.
Second to none.
And speaking of the Cowboys being lucky, Jimmy wanted James Francis, right? The linebacker, Baylor.
Yep.
They tried to trade to the Raiders to get ahead of Cincinnati, and the asking price.
All about James Francis.
The asking price was too high, so they were like, "No, we need players." So the next pick, after they couldn't make the trade, Cincinnati takes James Francis. The Cowboys had already had an arrangement with the next pick, which was Kansas City, that if James Francis was there, they were going to make a trade to get him at, I want to say, 13. Well, Cincinnati takes him at 12. And Jimmy called Cincinnati and tried to make a trade for James Francis.
He wanted him bad.
And Cincinnati goes, nah, we're
good.
We're good. And so now they would have to wait till 21. And Walt Jaworski and John Wooten basically told them, if you don't get ahead of Green Bay, the running backs are going to go off the board. Pittsburgh wanted a tight end. Was it Green?
Okay, let's go with it.
And anyway, and they convinced him that everybody's going to take a running back. When you get to 21, you'll get your tight end. So they made the trade, got Emmitt, and Pittsburgh got their tight end.
We almost had two Francises on the team at once.
Ron Francis?
Yeah.
He would have been, because he was already here. They got him in 87?
Both from Baylor?
No, like 88, wasn't it?
Oh, maybe 88.
Yeah.
In the second round.
I think so.
Speaking of going back to Emmitt and all that he accomplished, here's the other thing. Like Derrick Henry, okay, how is Derrick Henry the 45th pick in the draft in 2016? Second round, 45th pick in the draft. When you consider what a physical specimen he is and his production going back to high school in Florida and college at Alabama. I mean, it was just through the.
What made you pull him off?
Because Emmitt had the national high school record for yards gained. Well, Derrick Henry broke it. I mean, he had he broke Herschel Walker's single season college rushing record in the SEC. He set the national high school football record for career rushing yards. But here is just another example of. Sometimes they do too much thinking. Okay, this guy has been just top from youth league to high school to college. What makes you think he's not going to be able to do it in the NFL too? Whatever. By the way, Derrick Henry, first time he dunked a basketball. How old do you think he was?
12.
Yep, 6th grade.
You lying?
6th grade, he dunked a basketball. How about that? All right.
Green was right. Eric Green.
Okay.
I found my notes.
Very good.
Bill didn't care.
He went with green. He believed me.
Went with it, yeah.
All right, we wrap up Mick Shots in just a moment.
Star Sports Tours is the only official fan travel partner of the Dallas Cowboys, offering exclusive game weekend travel packages with pre-game sideline access and photo ops with current players, cheerleaders, and Cowboy legends. You want to stay at a team hotel, attend the best tailgate party in Texas, tour the Star, and talk X's and O's with me, Everson Walls? With Star Sports Tours, you can. Visit cowboystravel.com to book your travel package today.
Hey Cowboy fans, I'm Dak Prescott, quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys. But lately, I've been learning a new game, crypto. Sound confusing? Don't worry, even us pros were rookies in crypto once. That's why I trust blockchain.com. They make crypto easy. No confusing jargon, just the tools to help you win.
Prescott keeps it, slides with a first down.
Invest like your icons, where everyone is a rookie in crypto with blockchain.com.
Perfect throw, my goodness. Wow, did he ever thread the needle.
Visit blockchain.com/Cowboys to get started.
Star Sports Tours is the only official fan travel partner of the Dallas Cowboys, offering exclusive game weekend travel packages with pre-game sideline access and photo ops with current players, cheerleaders, and Cowboy legends. You want to stay at a team hotel, attend the best tailgate party in Texas, tour the Star, and talk X's and O's with me, Everson Walls? With Star Sports Tours, you can. Visit cowboystravel.com to book your travel package today.
Cowboys football and Miller Lite. What a pairing. Can cracks at kickoff. Tailgates going way past postgame. Sunday night overtimes followed by Monday morning swagger. Brisket in the smoker. Miller Lite in the cooler. America's team playing America's greatest sport. Miller Lite, the only beer of the Dallas Cowboys. Dallas Cowboys football tastes like Miller time. Celebrate responsibly. 2023 Miller Brewing Company, Fort Worth, Texas.
Back to Mick Shots.
Get excited for the most dazzling DCC experience yet. Dallas Cowboys Cheerleaders on Tour is coming to a theater near you. Witness live performances, enjoy on-stage Q&A sessions, and even be a part of live audition. If you're in Dallas, San Antonio, Austin, Midland, or El Paso, mark your calendar. For dates and tickets, visit DallasCowboysCheerleaders.com/tour.
All right, Mickey just circled something on his legal pad. It must be something very important.
You were talking about sleeper quarterback?
Uh-huh.
How about a sleeper cornerback?
Okay.
Siobhan Revel Jr., East Carolina. So he was on his way. He had a good 2 years ago season at East Carolina. Kind of was starting to make a name for himself. And in the third game last year, he tore his ACL. So now he's going to fall down. He couldn't do the combine, couldn't do his pro day. Guess who did his ACL repair? Dr. Dan Cooper.
All righty.
So they got a little inside information on this cornerback. There were some places I saw where he was ranked the 4th corner in the draft, even though he played only 3 games last year. 6'2", 194, had to go to JUCO, get his grades right. And
went to Lewisburg College before transferring to East Carolina.
Where's Lewisburg?
It's in Lewisburg.
North Carolina. North Carolina. But get this, when he did his
Thank you, Bill.
to get to East Carolina, East Carolina did a prospect camp. He was working in a warehouse for Amazon, and he and his dad drove overnight when he finished his shift to East Carolina. He ran a 4.440. He had 11-foot broad jump, 39 vertical. In his arms.
This is post-surgery?
No, this was before he even got to East Carolina.
Okay, go ahead.
So this is going back 4 years ago.
Yeah, and he did his arms were, I think it said 32 5/8 inches. So somebody, he may be a second-round pick, but does this team need a cornerback?
Hell yeah.
Is he ready to play coming off the ACL?
Yeah, he will be, because he did it in
third game of the year.
Third game, so September.
So it'll be 12 months by the time the
March, April, May.
Regular season opener will be about 12 months post-surgery.
Yeah. And they'll know. And they'll know because Coop did the surgery. So that caught my eye when I saw.
So when are you getting your running back then? If you're going to take him in the second round, you're going to take your running back in the first round or the third round?
I can do either.
Why can't you take the cornerback lower? Do you think he'll be there?
I don't know if he'll make it to the third.
It looks like he's listed as second or third round.
Okay. I was just a name that caught my eye, and he was somebody that they were supposed to bring in
What's his name again?
A visit. Siobhan Revel Jr.
Apparently it's pronounced Savon.
Savon?
Even though it's spelled Savon, it's Savon. So I guess the H is silent.
Savon, not Chavon. Okay.
Savon. Now, Dane Brugler in The Beast needed to say, how do you pronounce the last name? Is it Revel or is it Revel? Anyway, maybe it'll be something we'll figure out a week from Friday.
We'll find out.
Yeah.
So you mentioned defensive end.
Uh-huh.
What about the guy from A&M? Stewart?
Well, there's a couple. But Shamar Stewart is the one you're talking about, who's a first round. He's got they also have Nick Scorton. They also have Shamar Turner, who is a tweener between an end and a tackle. But Stewart he tested unbelievably well. Tremendous athleticism.
Did I read that he tested better than his performance was last year?
And his production has not been good, although he did impact plays. It didn't result. He didn't finish the plays with sacks, because he only had 1.5 sacks this year at A&M. In fact, all 3 years at A&M, he has had 1.5 sacks each year. It's for a total of 4.5 sacks in his career. So the production has not matched a first-round draft pick. But he is 6'5", 267 pounds, and ran a 4.59 40 with a 40 vertical and a 10.11 broad jump at the combine.
This is defensive end?
Defensive end, 6'5", 267 pounds, Shamar Stewart out of Texas A&M.
He's DeMarcus Ware. Although
Ware was 200. In fact, Ware was 250 pounds. Stewart's 200. He weighed in at 267. He played at 285 at A&M.
Mm-hmm.
So he's so if you're looking for a base defensive, and he was used a lot inside as well, that 4-eye technique at A&M, which also affects his production. But he was a disruptor in there, and so there's a lot of teams doing a lot of homework on him. He's a guy that, the traits, the explosion numbers, all of that it screams first-round draft pick, but production doesn't, and so you have to dig in and figure out why was he like that. Another thing that sometimes he left the Senior Bowl early, and so some teams will knock him on that. Why did he do that?
He didn't want to play.
He showed up, and then I think he may have left early in that he didn't even participate in the workouts, but I may be wrong on that.
Well, I thought listening to Brian Schottenheimer talking about quarterbacks and their pro days, and he said, I don't worry about the pro day workout. For the quarterback, I got to watch film. I got to see what they did when they were playing.
Mm-hmm.
Because I've seen, I watched Quinn Ewers' pro day. I've seen a couple on TV. And, and as Schottenheimer said, when they were trying to decide who to take in 2004, was that the Phillip Rivers?
Phillip Rivers, yep.
And he was in with the Chargers at that time. And he said after we drafted him, I asked him, what was your pro day workout like? And Rivers goes, are you kidding me? He goes, I could have done that in my sleep. Everything's preordained. You know what you're doing on every pass that you throw. He goes, the pro day workouts doesn't mean anything. I got to see it on film.
I got you.
By the way, you mentioned Phillip Rivers. My guy Riley Leonard, the quarterback from Notre Dame, lives 3 miles from
No
Phillip
way!
Rivers in Fairhope, Alabama, the hometown of Leon Lett.
Right.
And in fact, this shows the leadership qualities. Last summer, after he transferred to Notre Dame from Duke, he brought all his receivers and running backs to Alabama, and they trained with Phillip Rivers.
Really?
Yeah. Spent a weekend at Phillip Rivers' place.
The connections.
That's what I like in my quarterback, too.
Yeah,
There's
absolutely.
some Dak qualities there.
I'm looking at this Chevelle. What's his name? Ravel.
Yeah, Ravel, cornerback.
Man, he is tight coverage. Tight coverage. Down the field, short routes, long routes. Blitzes a lot.
Really?
He's good. Yes. He cornerback.
So sometimes when guys don't have a bunch of interceptions, they're just not throwing over there.
They're not throwing on him. They're trying to go deep on him. He is hip to hip with everybody that he's down
Did they
the field
quit
with.
throwing at you in 82?
Yes, they did.
All right, I'm giving you a homework assignment.
The last half of the season
Yeah.
and that strike season.
All right, I'm giving you a homework assignment. I'm going to give you some names, and I'll text them to you after the show. But here are some names. You've already looked at Ravel there. I want to get Will Johnson.
Field goals. Go ahead, I'm listening.
Will Johnson from Michigan, who is a first-round prospect. Maxwell Hairston, a slot corner from Kentucky, who ran a 4.28 with a 39.5 vertical.
There's Ravel on the screen right now.
He can go, man. He's tight coverage everywhere. Go ahead, Bill.
And Trey Amos from Ole Miss.
Okay.
I want you to take Shadeur Barron from Texas, who's another first-round prospect. Johnson and Barron are guys the Cowboys might consider at 12. Hairston would be a second-rounder, as would Amos. And I want to get your take next Monday on what you think about those guys.
This guy can track the ball in the air. He can track the ball.
In fact, 3 interceptions. So you've got 5 cornerbacks. Okay, the Everson assignment for next Monday. There's 5 cornerbacks he's going to look at. He's already looking at one in Savon Ravel from East Carolina. Will Johnson from Michigan, a first-round prospect. Shadeur Barron from Texas, first-round prospect. And second-round prospects, Maxwell Hairston of Kentucky, as well as Trey Amos from Ole Miss. I could give you Wanye Thomas's brother, too, from Florida State, Azariah Thomas.
That's fine.
Okay, he's another second-rounder. Okay, so we're going to figure this out next Monday.
And the reason we brought up cornerbacks?
Because they have a need for cornerbacks.
Yes, they do.
A big-time need, because we don't know about Trayvon Diggs' health at the beginning of the season, and, of course, the loss of Jordan Lewis.
Just like Trayvon.
And he
can track it down the field.
He needs to be here, Trayvon Diggs.
Yes.
That
just like Dak.
That rehab needs to be going on here.
Okay.
I'm just saying.
All right.
Because after Deron Bland,
who's going into his contract year?
What do you got? I know you traded for career.
My guy Josh Butler's coming off an ACL.
Yeah.
A late season ACL at that.
Kalen Carson, can he get his confidence back?
That's your boy, man.
Lost somewhere. He lost
That's your boy, man. Come on.
Jump from your first year to the second year,
You need to get him out there on the 10-speed, out on the highway, man.
All right. We ran out of time. We're past time here.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chris.
Yeah, thanks to our producer supreme, Chris B.
And boy, he's had all those guys we were talking about.
He had them on video.
He had them on video. And even when we were talking about Shadeur Sanders, NFL Network put him on.
That's because they're listening to us as well. Shadeur is visiting the Raiders today. I wonder what Tom Brady thinks about Shadeur Sanders. We'll have reports about that. All right, that does it for Mick Shots, and we will shout at you again next Monday at 11 a.m.
Before the draft.
Go Cowboys.
This has been a production of DallasCowboys.com and the Dallas Cowboys Football Club.
How about this, Cowboys? Yeah!